Back in high school, I was completely infatuated with my wife's best friend, Emily. Funny thing is, she couldn't stand me when we first met. She told people I was creepy, ugly, awkward, you name it. She never said it to my face, but I heard enough from classmates to know exactly where I stood. Still, I thought she was beautiful. Not just physically, though, yeah, that too, but she had this energy. Loud, confident, magnetic. The kind of self-assured presence that draws people in when you're a teenager. She was everything I wanted, and she couldn't have been less interested. Then came the school summer project assignments. By some ridiculous stroke of luck, I got paired with Emily. At first, we only talked about the assignment, but eventually our conversations drifted. We'd message on AIM for hours, about school, our families, our dreams. It wasn't flirty. It felt like a genuine friendship. But in my head, it was a second chance. I had once been the weird outsider in her world, and now I was rewriting that story. Only, part of it was built on a lie. I told Emily I had a girlfriend. In reality, there was just this girl I hung out with a few times that summer. I posted photos of us on MySpace and Facebook, letting Emily assume we were dating. It wasn't just to make her jealous, though yeah, that was part of it. It was also to make her feel safe around me, to convince her I wasn't chasing her anymore. And it worked. She relaxed, and I got to build this fantasy where she started to see me as someone desirable. I'd invent stories about romantic dates, dinners under fairy lights, walks through botanical gardens, late-night drives to nowhere. And Emily loved it. She'd sigh and say how that was exactly what she wanted. She'd complain about how guys never put in real effort, so I tailored my stories to hit that emotional nerve. She'd stay up listening to me talk about this imaginary relationship, practically narrating her own unmet needs. I took mental notes the entire time. When the school year resumed, I broke up with my fake girlfriend. Quietly, of course. Emily and I kept talking. I asked her out once. She turned me down. I knew she liked me in a strange, conflicted way, but not enough. Friends told me she still thought I was weird, off. I had nervous habits back then. I fidgeted a lot. I think that's what unsettled her. So I changed. I started lifting weights, learned how to dress better, watched how other people talked, moved, stood. I trained myself to hold eye contact, to stop fidgeting. It was exhausting, but I thought I was turning into the kind of guy she wanted. Then one day, out of nowhere, Emily told me her best friend Sierra liked me. Sierra was Emily's opposite. Quiet, grounded, introverted. We had barely spoken 10 words before that. But Sierra was beautiful, curvy in all the ways teenage boys obsess over, and she had this gentle, calming warmth. I wasn't in love with her, but I figured, why not? If I couldn't have Emily, maybe this would bring me closer. So I leaned into it. I took Sierra on the most romantic dates I could imagine, not to impress her, but to make sure Emily heard about them. I brought Sierra to places I knew Emily would swoon over. Outdoor movies, lakeside picnics, cozy little cafes. I played it slow, barely even kissed her at first. I became the thoughtful, patient guy Emily always said she wanted but never got. After every date, I'd casually mention something to Emily. We tried this new spot, or I made her a playlist. Then Sierra would fill in the rest. I know Emily was listening, and I know it got to her. Meanwhile, Emily and her boyfriend at the time was a disaster. Cheap, controlling, emotionally immature. She once complained he took her to Applebee's with a Groupon and then tried to pressure her in the parking lot. She told me she wished guys were more like me. She had no idea I was curating my relationship with Sierra just to create that effect. But something unexpected happened. I actually started falling for Sierra. What began as strategy slowly turned into something real. We didn't have tons in common, but she made me feel safe, steady. She supported me in ways I never expected from someone I barely knew. She was patient, kind, and genuinely excited about building a future. Even early on, we talked about marriage, kids, buying a house someday, and I realized I didn't want to let that go. So I made a choice. I let go of Emily emotionally. I stopped fantasizing about something that was never going to happen, and I went all in on Sierra. She was the real thing. I just hadn't seen it at first. Right around then, Emily and her boyfriend had a massive breakup, explosive. And like clockwork, she called me crying, needing someone to talk to. But I was already on the phone with Sierra. I told her I'd call her later. That one moment changed everything. Emily snapped. She called Sierra and went off, saying things like, "I had him first, and he only wants you because I put you two together." She was furious, jealous. Sierra was blindsided. She had no idea Emily harbored any of those feelings. They'd been best friends for years, and just like that, it was over. No more sleepovers, no more texts, no more friendship. Their entire history gone in a single call. Sierra never forgave her, and she still hasn't. It's been over 15 years since all that. Sierra and I got married 5 years ago. We bought a house. We're trying to start a family. I never told her the full story about why I dated her at first, about how much manipulation went into those early days, and I don't think I ever will. But I love her deeply. Not in a "I grew to love her" kind of way. I genuinely believe we were meant to end up together. I just took a really messed up path to get here. Sometimes I think about Emily, what she's doing now, whether she ever thinks about me, whether she regrets waiting too long. Not in a longing kind of way, more like remembering a version of yourself you no longer recognize. I didn't share this story to make myself sound good. Honestly, I don't think I do come off well. But the truth is complicated. Sometimes the person who wins didn't even know they were playing a game.
Back in 2003, the company I worked for shut down, and just like that, I was out of a job. Fortunately, I had a solid reputation as a skilled machinist and didn't have to job hunt for long. Within a day, I landed a position at a company we'll call Spiral. They specialized in custom, high-precision tools, and at first, the place seemed decent enough. Spiral was owned and run by one guy. Let's call him Dick, a fitting name, as you'll soon see. He was in the building every single day, pacing around like he owned the air we breathed. When I joined, there was a floor supervisor who was actually great. Fair, experienced, respected by the crew. The kind of guy you could turn to with any problem and get real solutions. About a year in, that supervisor and Dick had a massive falling out. Nobody knew exactly what happened, but it was messy. The next day, Dick called me into his office and told me I was now in charge. No warning, no raise, just, "You are the guy now." That should have been my first red flag. Let me paint a picture of Dick. He started Spiral out of his garage in the 70s and managed to grow it into a multi-million-dollar company by his early 30s. He even developed a large industrial park where Spiral was headquartered. He was easily one of the wealthiest men in the state. But wealth doesn't equal class. Dick was the most condescending, arrogant prick I've ever met. He screamed at employees for talking to each other, treated them like disposable trash, and had a compulsive need to brag about how rich he was, all while paying us barely above minimum wage. For some reason, he treated me and one other guy slightly better, but that didn't mean good. It just meant the abuse came in a different flavor. Still, we weren't allowed to talk during work. If he caught us chatting for even a second, he'd explode. Once I was unofficially in charge, I got a front row seat to just how shady he really was. During one of his ego-fueled rants, he let it slip that he was cooking the books. Spiral paid outrageous rent to the industrial park, conveniently owned by another of his shell companies. On paper, Spiral barely broke even. In reality, he was raking in cash and hiding it behind fake expenses. He once bragged that he buried barrels of industrial waste on his personal property to avoid disposal fees, just dug a hole in his backyard and dumped it in one night. That job turned into a slow 10-year bleed. My responsibilities piled up: hiring, training, scheduling, production oversight, maintenance coordination. But my pay? That didn't pile up at all. Every time I asked for a raise, he hit me with, "We're struggling financially," and reminded me how lucky I was to have a job. It wasn't just insulting, it felt like a prison. My paycheck kept me barely afloat. I couldn't afford to leave, and I think Dick knew it. The turnover rate was insane, around 95%. People would quit after just a week or two. Eventually, even temp agencies stopped sending us people. That's when you know you've hit rock bottom, when temps would rather stay unemployed than work at your shop. Eventually, I got smart. I began calling myself plant manager in emails and documents. At first, Dick rolled his eyes, but when I framed it as something that could help us attract better candidates, he begrudgingly agreed. That was my golden ticket. I didn't have a college degree, but now I had the title and 10 years of real-world experience to back it up. I started job hunting in earnest. After 6 long months, I found a company that wanted me. Better pay, real benefits, Spiral had none, and a healthy work culture. There was just one catch. They wanted a full 2-week notice. That was a no-go. I'd seen what happened to everyone who gave notice at Spiral. They were immediately kicked out. Dick had zero interest in professionalism, just ego. So instead, I quietly packed up my things, made sure I had all the documentation I needed, and waited until the end of what I'd decided would be my last shift. That night, I sat at my desk and sent 3 emails. One to the head of OSHA, one to my contact at the state EPA, one to the state attorney general's office. I didn't have to lie, I just laid out what I'd witnessed and been told: the book cooking, the waste dumping, the unsafe conditions, and the willful neglect. I had more than enough evidence. I left my keys on the desk. On top of them was a note with 2 simple words: I quit. I knew I was lighting a fire as I walked out the door. And yeah, I was a little bummed I wouldn't be around to watch it burn. But about a month later, I got a call from my OSHA contact. Spiral had already been hit with $150,000 in fines for willful violations. The EPA? They had to excavate half of Dick's backyard before he finally confessed to where he'd buried the waste. I never heard exactly what happened with the Attorney General, but I do know this: Dick ended up behind bars. Poetic justice. It took 10 years of being underpaid, disrespected, and financially trapped. But in the end, I walked away with my head high and watched a crooked millionaire finally get what was coming to him. Best resignation ever.
All right, here's a truth nobody wants to say out loud, but I will. There was this kid in my town, a year below me in school. Senior year, he was basically the golden boy, straight out of a high school drama, the quarterback who had it all: money, girls, charm, and zero humility. Football star, ran track, played baseball and basketball, straight A student. And if the rumors were true, half of his assignments were done by other kids he intimidated or bribed. He was always with a cheerleader on his arm and that arrogant smirk on his face. Everyone adored him, teachers, coaches, parents, even the school board. But this guy, he was a total asshole. I'm not talking about your average jerk. He went out of his way to humiliate anyone he deemed beneath him, kids who weren't popular, rich, or attractive enough. It wasn't just an attitude, it was his mission. I once saw him dump fast food wrappers on marching band kids just to mock them. He threw a tuba across the grass for laughs. He didn't care. He knew he'd get away with it. He always did. As for me, I was mostly left alone. I had some mutual friends in his circle. I guess that gave me a layer of protection. But that didn't extend to the people I actually cared about. He'd torment kids I hung out with, and then flash me a smile, like I was supposed to be thankful he didn't come for me too, like I owed him for his selective cruelty. Then came last weekend. Huge end-of-year house party. Everyone was there, including me, mostly out of boredom. I didn't care to drink or hook up. I just had nothing better to do. And of course, Golden Boy was there, doing his usual thing, drinking like it was an Olympic event, totally obliterated, stumbling into furniture, puking in bushes, slurring his words, a complete mess. Around 3 a.m., he and some equally drunk friends piled into a truck. No seatbelts, going 85 in a 40, twisting roads, pitch black outside. You already know how it ends. Driver loses control, hits a pole. Our hometown hero flies through the windshield, smacks into a tree, dead on impact. And you know what I felt when I heard? Relief. Not shock, not sadness, not even indifference. Just pure relief. Because I knew exactly what the world had just been spared. But now watching everyone act like we lost a saint, it makes me sick. The kid was a monster, and now the whole town's pretending he was some kind of martyr. That morning, I woke up to sobbing, screaming, news stories, coaches crying on TV about what an inspiration he was. Grief counselors were brought to school. We got out of class early for reflection. They even raised money for his family, his filthy rich family, like they were victims of some act of God, not the fact their arrogant son got himself killed. I heard someone call it an unavoidable tragedy. Really? Unavoidable? That kid climbed into a moving death trap by choice. He was drunk, he was reckless, and every part of that night was preventable. But no one is allowed to say that. Everyone's too busy crying over how he touched so many lives and was full of love. It makes me want to scream. What about the band kid that died last year? The quiet one who played clarinet and was genuinely kind. He got a 10-minute speech over morning announcements and some awkward silence at lunch. No counselors, no fundraisers, no fake eulogies. Because he wasn't popular, he wasn't rich. He didn't have the town eating out of his hand. This double standard is disgusting. And nobody wants to be honest about it. So fine. I'll be the one to say it. I'm glad he's gone. I'm glad he won't be around to make life miserable for anyone else. I'm glad no more band kids will get trash dumped on them. I'm glad no more quiet freshmen will be bullied just for existing. The truth is, he wasn't taken too soon. He was taken before he could do more damage. I know how that sounds. I know you're not supposed to say that about someone who died. But if we can't be honest about someone after they're gone, what's the point in remembering them at all? The fake tears, the rose-colored lies. He was a bully who died doing something stupid. And I won't pretend otherwise. Let everyone else rewrite his story. I'll remember the truth. A little over a year ago, I found out my husband was cheating on me. It started like most gut feelings do. Quiet, almost dismissible. There weren't any glaring red flags or dramatic changes in his behavior. He didn't come home smelling like perfume or text from the other side of the couch with a guilty grin. No, it was the little things. Like how he used to double text me when he was out of town just to say he missed me. Then, suddenly, silence. He used to come back from trips with souvenirs or funny stories. Now, all I got were vague shrugs and tired eyes. It was subtle, but it was there. I think I knew long before I started snooping, but when someone promises to love you forever, you want to believe them. You want to give them the benefit of the doubt, until that doubt becomes deafening. One night, while he was snoring peacefully beside me like nothing was wrong, I got up, went to the kitchen, and made tea I didn't even drink. I sat there for 20 minutes, wondering if I could live with the possibility that he was hiding something. Then, I walked into his office and opened his email. There it was. Not just flirtation, not just a one-time mistake, like cheaters love to call it. A full-blown affair. Trips, dinners, photos. There was even one picture of them kissing on a rooftop bar with the city skyline in the background. And in that moment, I snapped. He looked happier in that photo than I'd seen him in years. That was when the sadness in me died, and something much colder took its place. But I didn't lose it. I didn't scream. I didn't even cry. Instead, I calmly closed the laptop and started searching for divorce lawyers the next day during my lunch break. I didn't want a messy exit. I wanted a calculated one. I met with a lawyer in secret. He confirmed that based on my income and the length of our marriage, I was definitely eligible for alimony. When he asked if I had proof, I showed him the emails and photos, all already backed up to my private drive. He gave me a look that said, "You're not the first, and sadly, you won't be the last." He then asked if my husband had any major financial changes coming up. I told him yes. He was set to receive a big raise in the next fiscal quarter. My lawyer smiled and told me that waiting until the raise went through would significantly increase the alimony calculation. That's when it clicked. Not only was I getting out, I was going to make him pay, literally. So I played the part. I smiled. I cooked. I kept up appearances. He had no idea that I was spending every lunch break collecting documents, printing financial records, and setting myself up to walk away with the house and a hefty monthly check. Meanwhile, he kept sneaking off to hotels with his little work fling and coming home to the wife who folded his laundry and kissed him goodnight. I could have confronted him every time I passed him in the hallway, but I bit my tongue. Because anger brings short-term satisfaction. Silence? Silence lets you win. Then the raise came through. His company emailed out the new salary brackets, and I printed that email with shaking hands. That weekend, I double-checked every file in my folder and smiled to myself, knowing exactly how this was going to end. This morning, I made him breakfast. Eggs, just the way he likes them. Toast with good jam, even coffee. Brought to him, in bed. He didn't deserve it, but that wasn't the point. I watched him sip the coffee and call me the best wife in the world. And something inside of me finally exhaled. When he smiled, I kissed him on the cheek and said, "I'll be filing for divorce this week. The paperwork will be sent to your office." I can't even describe the look on his face,
like someone told him the world was ending and Santa Claus had died at the same time. First came confusion, then panic. He stood up and started yelling, asking what was wrong, calling me insane. Then came the tears. "Why are you doing this? What's happening? I love you. Don't do this." I didn't say a word. I walked upstairs, grabbed my pre-packed bag, and left to stay at a hotel. Since then, he's left me 18 voicemails, not a single one taking responsibility. Just, "What did I do?" and "How could you do this to us?" No mention of the cheating. No apology. Here's the thing. I'm not mad anymore. I'm not heartbroken. I just feel free. He'll be paying me alimony. I'll be keeping the house. He'll have to watch me move on, knowing full well that he threw away a loyal, committed wife for a fling he couldn't even keep discreet. Update. Since that morning, a few wild things have happened. First, I've received some completely unlynched messages from random men I don't even know, telling me I'm evil for making him pay alimony, that I'm ruining his life, that I should have just forgiven him. One even had the audacity to say it was my fault for not being interesting enough to keep my husband's attention. Newsflash: cheaters cheat. It's not about the partner. It's about entitlement. If you think I'm the bad guy for holding him accountable, then you're part of the problem. Second, my soon-to-be ex keeps messaging my friends trying to get sympathy. Too bad most of them saw through his act years ago and are firmly on my side. A few have even offered to testify if he tries to contest anything. Lastly, and maybe most satisfying of all, I have it in writing that he's responsible for the majority of our marital debt. He used our joint credit to impress his mistress, so when the courts see it, it's all on him. To anyone who needs to hear this, don't scream. Don't throw the dishes. Don't give him the satisfaction of knowing he hurt you. Play the long game. Collect your evidence, protect your peace, then walk away like the badass you are, while he drowns in the mess he made. I'm not bitter. I'm not vengeful. I'm just done. And that is the most powerful place to be.